Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. So this will make a good pub quiz question in future. When did Kemi Badenoch become Conservative Party leader? If you think, as I did until last week, that it was early November 2024 after she was named winner of the leadership contest, you would be wrong. It turns out, because Badenoch is so incompetent, Rishi Sunak was still legally the leader of the Conservative Party until January 30th of this year. And the cherry on top is that he still would be the leader now, but for Labour pointing the cock up out. It took Labour to let the Conservatives know that they can't even handle basic administration of their own party, let alone be trusted to run the country. I hope they make full use of this, because right now they're not doing. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So this is priceless, really is. Conservatives were watching yet another abject performance from Kemi Badenoch in PMQs again last week. Little murmurs that she will have to go, already starting to emerge in the Tory press, albeit not from MPs. I'm not hearing any dissent there. But, people keep pointing out, if you look at the body language of Conservative MPs in the House of Commons during PMQs, they're not exactly enjoying themselves. Mind you, I actually thought it was her best performance. But whether you thought it was terrible or just merely bad, it wasn't anywhere near her most embarrassing moment last week. Last week was the week we found out she'd only just become Conservative leader, even though she's been masquerading as it for several months now. Because we all thought that when the results of the Tory leadership contest were announced at the start of last November, that over the following 24 hours, Rishi Sunak would formally step down, Kemi Badenoch officially take up the reins. But Kemi Badenoch, who, remember, until last year was the Secretary of State in charge of business, could not even manage the basic business of taking over the Conservative Party, leaving Sunak in charge, which was bad enough, but made worse by the fact it took Labour to actually notice. See, the Conservative Party, it's not just like a philosophical concept. It's an organisation. It has assets. It employs staff. It manages people's money. This means it has legal obligations not to allow dodgy dealings with its assets, the money given to it by donors and members, and not to break employment law with their employees, as well as a whole range of other responsibilities. And in order to enforce the law, should the Conservative Party be investigated for any breaches, there needs to be a named person who has administrative responsibility for the organisation. Now, this was Rishi Sunak up until the results of the leadership contest were announced last November the 2nd. But it turns out it was still Rishi Sunak after this date, right up until the end of January, when Labour noticed, tapped the Conservatives on the shoulder and said, I think you've missed something here. Your glorious leader has messed up again. Kemi Badenoch thinks she's ready to manage the country, including the government and the entire civil service. Yet, even though she's been business secretary, she didn't seem to realise that there's some legal paperwork to deal with in order to transfer administrative control of a large organisation. And although Labour didn't seem to make a big deal of this over the last week, in their social media adverts or in Parliament last week, unless I missed it, but they really should have done, they have filed a complaint because Kemi Badenoch has been behaving as if she's the leader. Everyone else in the organisation believed she was the leader. She's been making decisions on the use of Conservative assets that only the leader can make. But legally, she was not registered as the person of significant control, which means that Kemi Badenoch has also broken the law. Not that anything's going to happen. There was no malice intended or dodgy dealings planned. It was just a cock-up, clearly inadvertent, but also deeply embarrassing. It shows the Conservative Party to be like a two-bit operation, which might even be more poorly organised than Reform UK. With Nigel Farage going, I know a load of our candidates are racist, we didn't vet them. But you said you were going to, but we didn't because we're rubbish. The Conservative Party are on that level now. Can't even manage something as simple as registering who the administrative leader of the party is. Even Nigel Farage can sort that sort of thing out. According to the report in The Observer from last week, Labour said, and I quote, "For someone who doesn't make mistakes, this looks like an awful lot like another Kemi Badenoch gaffe. Thousands of people are able to register their business properly, but it looks beyond the Tories." But no great spotlight has been shone on this in the media. if it had been reversed. Like, imagine that the Conservative Party were able to point out that Jeremy Corbyn was still the leader of the Labour Party. That'd be all over the front pages, wouldn't it? But this is why Labour need to make more of this themselves. Electoral viability in the public's mind, it's down to a few factors. It's not just down to policies. There are a couple of other factors as well. The first is how credible do voters take the idea that a particular party can win, right? That is why Reform UK are such a threat to the Conservatives, much more than Labour, if they remain ahead of them in the polls. Because there are people who are sort of, you know, they're between the Conservatives and Reform UK, but they vote Conservative because the Conservatives have the best chance of winning. And that was shown up by the fact the Conservatives won 121 seats in the election and Reform UK only 5. But if Reform UK stay ahead of them in the polls, those voters will start to decide that actually the pragmatic vote is more likely to be beneficial to either the Lib Dems or Reform UK, depending on which they're closer to. But the second factor is competence. You might like the sound of policies, but do you think the characters in charge of the party have the competence to carry them out? You know, there's a lot of voters who go, oh yeah, heart's in the right place. Yeah, we like that, but we just don't think they've got what it takes. You know, we've seen that before. If the Conservative Party cannot even manage something as basic as transferring control of their own party from one leader to another, are you really going to believe they've got the administrative skill to implement complex budgets and legislation? Which is why Labour should be hammering this much more. I know some of you will say, oh, maybe Starmer wants to keep Badenoch in place. No, they absolutely don't. This is exactly the same scenario I said existed when Boris Johnson needed to go. They want... Badenoch is going. That's all there is to it. There's no way Badenoch's going to lead the Conservatives into the next election. So she's going to go. The Conservatives cannot afford another hat trick. They cannot afford to get rid of Badenoch, get someone else in, and then go, oh no, they're just as bad, and get someone else. They can't afford another triple bill, right? Whoever they replace Badenoch with, they need to accept that that person is going to lead them into the election. So the sooner you get rid of Badenoch, the more of a knee-jerk reaction it'll have to be from the Tories, the more likely they are to pick someone unsuitable. And also, the more time Labour have to work on them. Whereas if the Tories replace their leader, let's say, a year out from the election, Labour have only got a year to then, rip them a new one. So no, Labour, given that she is going to go, will want her gone as soon as possible. So they should hammer, hammer, hammer. Yes, they've made a formal complaint. But we know nothing's going to come of it because nobody believes it was deliberate. That's the beauty of it. Ironically, it would be better for Badenoch's image amongst voters if she was seen as a dishonest pirate than an incompetent buffoon. Labour could point to the fact that the offence potentially carries a maximum sentence of 2 years in prison to go along with the 5 years in prison she could have had for hacking an MP's account in the past. And it's a way of properly humiliating Badenoch, the one who said she doesn't make mistakes, the one who said she doesn't make gaffes, she doesn't have to apologise because she doesn't make mistakes, as the Labour spokesperson alluded to. Like last year, Badenoch was saying that. I don't have to apologise because I think everything carefully through. That's what she said, or words to that effect. But she forgot to tell the authorities that she was Conservative leader for 3 months, only doing so after Labour spotted the error and pointed it out for her. She accused Farage of using an automatic counter to show his party members, which was instantly proven to be a false allegation. Not only does Badenoch commit gaffes, she may end up competing with Boris Johnson. Only Johnson once suggested that he intended to use gaffes as a deliberate political tactic to distract people. Badenoch is committing gaffes whilst claiming she never does. It's embarrassing. And Labour should be making more people aware of just what an embarrassment she is. Every PMQs, Starmer should crowbar somewhere into the proceedings, and there's plenty of questions she could ask where he doesn't want to answer them anyway. Should just say, don't need to take any lessons from someone so incompetent that it took her 3 months to notify the authorities that she was the Conservative leader, and only that happened because Labour pointed it out. And if he really wants to go for it, he can mention that it took her longer to fill in the basic paperwork needed to take over the Conservative Party than Liz Truss spent as leader in total. Absolute gold dust this is. I just don't think enough has been made of it. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.